Hello guys, welcome back to another video today with ARC Exotics, and in this video what we're going to be doing is a top 10 on how to keep your reptiles cool in the summer. Now here in the UK, especially where I am, the last 4 or 5 days have been about 35 degrees, which in the UK is really hot, which means everything else gets hotter along with that, and a lot of people over on Instagram are struggling to keep their reptiles cool, as are we as well. Behind us everything is too hot and going much over the limit. So I've done some research on other YouTubers and of some of my own ideas as well. So we're basically going to be telling you the top 10 ideas to keep your reptiles cool during the summer. Right guys, so the first tip that we are suggesting today is the ice cubes. Basically everybody knows what these little things are. You fill them with water, put them in the freezer, and you have ice cubes. So all you've got to do is come over to here, pop them out, and if you've got an Exoterra like most people have, then you just want to put a few cubes on each side of the mesh. So you want to put 2 on this side and 2 on this side here. Now obviously because it is extremely hot, over time these will melt and go down and drip underneath the vents, and as they melt a little bit will go here, there and everywhere, which over the course of the day should keep your reptile cool. Now they do melt quite quickly, as you can see the water here already. Now when they do melt you can add more, so don't feel like you can't, but remember to monitor the temperature here, because you don't want to make it too cold and then do the opposite of what you were trying to prevent. Now I know that everybody doesn't have these, and I know that with the lockdown in certain countries some stuff still isn't open, so you might not be able to get them, but another alternative is cool blocks, like the picnic things that you take with you to keep your picnics cool. Use them for a lot of other stuff as well. Now there's different alternatives to these. I haven't got cool blocks, I've got cool pineapples. They're basically just plastic and they keep the water inside of them and then melt away like you see here. And these can work the exact same as the ice cubes. Now we're going to leave these here because the temp is too hot, but like I say, if these weren't here it would be the exact same of placing these or the cool block on the mesh, so then it will eventually drip down and keep your reptile cool. So they work the exact same, and they're probably a little bit easier to use because you don't always have to have water, you just need the cold temperature to be able to freeze them. Right, now the next one is kind of 2 into 1 to an extent. So we've got a frozen water bottle that obviously we have just put normal tap water in and kept in the freezer overnight. Now there's 2 little tips here. This can be placed in a tank and left to cool down and melt, obviously keeping the ambient temp of the tank much cooler. But like our frog for example, instead of just leaving it in here, we've actually done 2 things to keep him cool by also removing the lid. Now you don't want to remove the lid on certain stuff like the guy up here, because he will get out, as you all know, he's a nightmare. But things like the frog down here, he definitely can't scale this glass and he definitely can't get out. So if you can remove the lid on your reptiles, do it, but if you can't, don't worry too much. And then just put the frozen bottle in a safe place wedged against the ground so it can't tip over on the frog, who is actually burrowed under there somewhere. But make sure that it can't tip over and squash him. Leave it in the corner like that, and then just put the tank back to where you'd normally do it, and over the course of time this will slowly melt and keep the ambient temperature on a low. Right, now our next tip is over to the leopard tortoise tank. Now as you know, this is an open top vivarium and the light for the leopard tortoises get quite hot. Now because this is a open vivarium, the heat goes everywhere, not just within the tank, which obviously heats up everything else, including the actual room itself. So obviously again, make sure you're keeping an eye on your thermostats and reading the temperature. But if this is too hot and the ambient temperature is still okay, then just turn off your heating equipment and have it low, and if it needs to be heated back up again, turn it on, and just do it vice versa. And that way it shouldn't be as tricky or get as hot. Right, now we're going to try and not rush this video but do it within good time, because the person filming and myself are getting very hot because it is extremely hot in here today. But another little tip for you is the unessential lighting. Now UVB is essential, yes, I'm not saying it isn't, but for a couple of days, 3, 4, a week max, no UVB will be fine. Especially for some smaller animals as well, like the line day geckos behind me. So what you can do is basically the UVB that we have under here, which is on this HUD here, the top of this is actually quite warm, and again that all plays part in warming the actual tank itself. So what you can do is just switch this off like that, and then it will be less lights and less heat. Now the next one is going to be using a fan. So as you can see behind me here, we have a couple of tanks. Now you want to have the fan somewhere where the tanks are sort of getting the most out of it. So what we've done is we've put the fan here, and obviously there's different settings compared to the heat, but if we put it on number 1 for example, we can either have it on this set part, or we can have it adjusting around the room to get the other tanks, but it doesn't matter too much. All you've got to remember is little things like we said earlier about Frog's tank being open. We don't want this to go down into his tank and give him too much of a draft, because drafts for animals aren't good, especially reptiles. But if not, keep it like this. There's little vents in the doors, little vents through here, especially on the Exoterras, and hopefully over time you'll see the ambient temp drop slightly. Right, now this is the next tip. Water bottle spray down. Now this can be done different depending on what you keep. For example, if I wanted to spray the crested gecko that we have here, I'd try not to spray him directly but just spray his ambient tank. So what I'd do is, and as you can see here from the previous tips, look at the ice cubes which are now dripping off, and if you come over to the temp gauge here, the temperature is already starting to drop slightly, which is exactly what we want. But back to this tip, basically you don't want to spray the gecko directly or the animal directly, but you just want to give it a general spray around like this. Now yes, this will help with humidity, which is sometimes a bad thing, but overall that will cool the animal down. So as we say, all I feel like I keep saying is the next step, but this is the next step or the next tip. Little things that you can help, like anyone can do basically. So the windows, just open the windows, and again just monitor the drafts, because it's never good for an animal to get a draft, but when the temperature is so hot and humid outside there won't be much of a draft, but keep an eye on them. Don't leave them all day with the windows open, and just keep checking back on them. But windows allowing the breeze to come in and out and the air to circulate is another big factor. Now our next tip will continue in this area. Now I did just say about the windows being open, but the next tip to stop the sun coming in, if it's a hot day and your house is directing the sun way, then you can draw the curtains or the blinds depending on what you have. And obviously, yes, we just open the windows, but the air will still flow underneath them and through them, or through the gap in the middle, so it keeps the sun out and it also keeps the air circulating as well. So our 10th and final tip on how to keep your animals cool. Now we're going to use a crested gecko as an example, which is actually a perfect example. Now I disagree, but each to your own. A lot of people do not actually keep water bowls with their animals, or certain animals or species, especially crested geckos, and they say, oh, they'll just get a drink when we spray them. Now before this hot weather we always used to keep a bowl with our crested gecko, and numerous times, and I've even caught it on film, we've seen them drinking from the bowl at night. So that just tells you that they can drink if they want to and when they need to. So I'd always recommend the bowl anyhow, but in hot days like this make sure you change it more frequently, and make sure that it's cold water, because if you put this water in here over the course of probably less than a day, it will already get hot and up to room temperature, making it not very good to be drunken by. So other than that, so guys, all in all, I hope that all of them tips have managed to help you somehow or another. Even if 1 of the 10 help you, or 5 of the 10, or 10 of the 10, I just hope that some of them help you keep your reptiles cool, because I know a lot of people worry about it. I know that us here, we especially worry about it as well. And I also understand that people work for a living, so they can't just be at home to watch the tanks 24/7. But like I say, this is just some of the stuff that you can do whilst you are at work or you are away from home. And then hopefully that will just stop you worrying, and also hopefully your animal will be better off as well like that. So basically all of them should help in some way or another and benefit you. And if you have any questions on anything else like that, or if you have any ideas yourself on how to keep stuff cool, then let us know in the comments down below.